Hi, thanks so much for joining me on today's episode of Soap Queen TV. This is the third in my basic cold process series, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use fragrance oils and essential oils in your soap. Before we start with this episode, I want to make sure you've watched the first basic episodes from the Soap Queen TV series on making cold process soap. They deal with lye safety. Lye safety is so important to ensure that you have a safe and excellent batch of soap when you're all said and done. So if you haven't watched those or reviewed them, stop right now and head back to those 2 episodes to make sure you get the basic building blocks in. In addition to watching those first 2 episodes, I think research is great, and the more research you do, the better your soap is going to turn out. So consider watching this 45-minute DVD on how to make cold process soap. And the Everything Soap Making book by Elisa Grosso is awesome. It covers a lot more that I could ever get into in these short Soap Queen TV episodes. First, I'm going to cover the most common question we get at BrambleBerry.com. What is the difference between a fragrance oil and essential oil? Well, fragrance oils are a combination of synthetic aroma chemicals that are created in a lab to make amazing smelling fragrances like white tea and ginger, chocolate, or even tropical vacation. Essential oils are totally natural. They come from herbs and plants that were grown in the earth that create a natural essential oil that's usually steam distilled out of the plant. I like to use both fragrance oils and essential oils in my soap. If I'm making a soap that's 100% natural, I always use an essential oil. But sometimes using an essential oil can have drawbacks because not everything in nature produces an oil. For example, you could find strawberries in nature, but they don't produce an essential oil, so you'll never get a natural strawberry essential oil. You have to use a fragrance for that. It's totally a personal preference which option you choose to use. Once you've chosen whether to use a fragrance or an essential oil, the next thing to look at is what color is that fragrance or essential oil. This is Tenfold Orange Essential Oil. Check out how orange that essential oil is. If you use this essential oil in your cold process soap, it may impede your ability to get a true color. Purple is awful hard to get when you're starting with an orange base. Another consideration is how much vanilla or vanillin is in your fragrance oil. Vanillin is what makes your fragrance oil smell sweet, like vanilla or cupcake or frosting. In this example, these are 2 different vanilla-based fragrance oils. Look at the difference. The bottom one clearly has more vanillin in it, and that's why the soap is naturally getting more brown. It's important when you're using a brand new fragrance oil that you test it in a small batch first. Why is this? Well, because soap making at its very core is a science, and any sort of fragrance or essential oil you add can throw this into an entire tailspin. In the harsh environment that fresh soap is, sometimes it totally eats the fragrance or essential oil. For example, most citrus essential oils don't make it through the saponification process. So, test your soap in a small recipe to make sure that fragrance really lasts and it doesn't do any of these next upcoming nasty tricks. Sometimes when you're using a fragrance oil or an essential oil, you'll hear terms like ricing, seizing, acceleration. What do these terms mean? Well, acceleration is when you add a fragrance or an essential oil to your soap and it makes the entire process start to speed up. The soap actually gets visibly thicker in the soap pot. This is a concern if you're trying to do swirls or do anything complicated like a layer. Usually if a fragrance accelerates trace, you'll want to keep that soap to just one color. Seizing is what happens when acceleration takes it to the next level. This is when a fragrance oil or an essential oil speeds up the process so much that you literally get soap on a stick inside your soap pot. It turns rock solid and you can't even glop it into your molds. Ricing is another thing to watch out for. What is ricing? It's just a term that refers to what happens when you add fragrance oil and the soap starts to either separate out or make little ricey globules or granules in the actual recipe. You can do a couple things here. 1, you can use your stick blender to try and blend everything back together. Sometimes this works. If it doesn't work, the second thing you can do is hot process the soap out. That's an advanced soap making technique, and you can learn more about that in the How to Make Cold Process DVD I've done. Now you know about accelerating, seizing, and ricing, and it's almost time to make your first batch of soap. But before we do that, usage rates. How much fragrance or essential oil do you use in your cold process soap? I use 0.7 ounces to 1 ounce of fragrance oil or essential oil for each finished pound of soap. The one caveat I have is that some essential oils have safety considerations like clove leaf or cinnamon leaf or peppermint essential oil. All of them could be possible skin irritants, so make sure to research your usage rates if you're using specific essential oils. And now it's time to use our newfound knowledge and make ourselves a batch of soap. You ready? Now, let's get outfitted up. Safety first. Goggles and gloves. Now it's time to measure out our water and our lye. Measure out 7.9 ounces of distilled water. Then, in a separate container, measure out 3.4 ounces of lye. Keeping in mind the lye safety video, always add your lye slowly to your water. Stir, making sure not to breathe in any of those lye fumes. And whoa, look at this, it's about 190 degrees. This is warm. Set your lye water in a safe place so that it can cool down. The next step is to put all of our oils into liquid form. If you're buying your coconut oil and palm oil from brambleberry.com, they come in these easily boilable and microwavable bags. So just pop this bag into the microwave. All of my oils are liquid. They're totally melted. And the palm oil has been fully mixed. It's time to measure out our oils. We need 8 ounces of coconut oil, 8 ounces of palm oil, and 8 ounces of olive oil. Let's take this temperature. That is just a little bit low. I'm going to put this in the microwave for about a minute. Now this looks pretty good. When I do my cold process soap, I like my lye water and my oils to be within about 10 to 15 degrees of each other. My lye water is around 145, my oils are around 135. It's time to mix. I've already got my mold lined and ready, and I have additional molds on hand in case there's any extra soap left over. It's time to mix. Slowly pour your lye water into your oil mixture. Be sure not to trap any air on the bottom of the stick blender. It's really easy to do, and if you do this, you might whip in way too much air into your soap. So just tip the stick blender kind of on the side so none of the air stays underneath the stick blender. Keep stick blending on short bursts, making sure to mix the tops and the bottom of the entire batch together. Once you have what looks like faint trailings on the top of the soap, this is thin trace. You can go all the way to thin or medium trace before adding your fragrance oil. It looks like we have a great medium trace. This looks like almost a light pudding. It's time to add our fragrance. I'm going to be using oatmeal, milk, and honey. It's the #1 best-selling fragrance at Bramble Berry, and I think it smells great. I always hand stir my fragrances in just in case the fragrance is going to be problematic. And now the soap's ready to pour. Pour slowly and evenly into your mold. All right, we're almost to the top. Now, just to make sure there's no excess air bubbles at all, I'd like to give my mold just a few taps on the counter. And it's time to insulate. Take a piece of plastic wrap, toss it over the top of the soap to protect your towel, and then wrap your soap in the towel. Just wait 24 hours until the soap is hard enough to pull out of the mold and slice. And then it's time to wait and wait some more. Because over the next 4 to 6 weeks, your soap will evaporate out the excess water and become the most mild soap it possibly can be before you sell it, give it away, or use it yourself. I made this soap a couple days ago so I could show you what this batch of oatmeal, milk, and honey looked like. It's got a little bit of soda ash on top. Just loosen the wing nuts on the mold, pull the soap gently out. Easy. Using a sharp kitchen knife, carefully cut your first bar off your loaf of soap. Wow, that looks awesome. Kind of like a butter toffee. I'm just going to cut the rest of my soap and put it on the curing rack. Thanks so much for joining me today as I made cold process soap. I hope your batch of cold process soap is equally successful. Until next time, happy soaping. Thanks so much for joining me today on Soap Queen TV. I'm just going to cut the rest of the soap and put it on my curing rack. I really liked you having as company. Okay.